Hi, everybody. Colleen O'Neill here at Mediation and Beyond YouTube channel, and I'm here with one of my favorite global people, international people, Galit Romanelli, who is founder of M.Other Milk, which we'll hear more about. And I've had Galit on before. If you ever want to check out what we've talked about before with divorce stuff and whatnot, please go check out those videos. So she's not only the founder of M.Other Milk, she's also co-founder of Potential State, where she's a life coach with herself and her husband. And so thank you so much for coming on. I love talking to you, Galit.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's always a treat to talk to you, Colleen.
Absolutely. And so why I wanted you to come on, and we shared a little bit earlier, was because I have been reading some of your posts that you've been putting out there, which in your original language, because you're in Israel, when your original, is it Arabic? Is it Arabic? Hebrew.
Yeah.
I'm sure it comes out much differently, but I was sharing with you that sometimes the translation pieces lose a little bit, but regardless, you still get the rawness, the honesty, the transparency of what you're talking about, whether it be your lactation classes and even just going and getting licensed, or whether it's about your relationship with your children, which is always very raw and real. I'm fascinated that we don't have more of these conversations online, like real platforms for them. And I love that you share. What is it about you that feels so comfortable putting it all out there?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for saying all those things and that it's raw and real. And that's what I just that's what I hope to do. That's really my goal. And that was kind of also the thought process behind Mother Milk, was to get out these real raw stories that really showcased the breadth of experiences that mothers have.
Mhm.
So I think part of my motivation is to model that and to be really vulnerable and open about the struggles. And to be completely honest, I don't really know any other way. I don't know any other way. I was reflecting back to kind of childhood when I used to journal, and
Mm,
then there was a long period of time where I stopped journaling. And
yep.
I think that I kind of use social media as an outlet to
It's your
journal
journal.
because,
Great.
I live by this assumption that if I'm feeling it, if I'm going through something, I'm not the only person that this is
Yeah,
happening to. I'm not
yeah.
the only person that is experiencing things with these feelings or struggles. And so somebody out there must be feeling something similar.
Right.
And um and 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 I feel like when we story tell our personal experiences, then there's this very real connection
It's true.
between us as kind of as humans.
And yeah, I was going to say, because it really, when I read your stuff, it doesn't matter what age we are. I think you and I are probably 20 years apart, but either I will
I don't think
remember,
it's that much. I don't think it's
well,
that much, Colin.
I remember feeling that way and having no place to put it because internet really wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And if you did feel it, I still feel like not a lot has shifted in the world of being a woman, where we're now talking about work a lot, but
Yeah.
we don't still talk about self a lot, and the honesty with self in that motherhood framework, the shame, embarrassment,
Yeah.
I'm the only one. So putting
Yeah.
yourself out there, I think, when I read it, even it brings me back to, oh, I still have that in me. I could still share. Like, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter that you're experiencing it now, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think, well, I think firstly, I think it's amazing that it transcends language, right? Because you're reading kind of a translation. So that just, I think,
Oh,
is further evidence that when we write from the heart and we write about these struggles that we experience, then we do have this commonality we all go through, and it transcends language barriers. So that's kind of one thing. And then
and culture.
yeah. and culture, yeah, our environment, our surroundings, absolutely. And the other thing that you mentioned is kind of this, you know, where we are in the life cycle. And I think that if we don't have a place, like you say, to kind of express these emotions, and the transition to motherhood is so momentous. It's so huge. And I think that when we don't have an outlet to really process it, then we kind of get almost stuck there a little bit, um and and being able to reflect on it and talk about it, I think helps us kind of move through it.
Right, you know, and it's in motherhood, it's an ambiguous term. Like,
Yeah,
is motherhood being
yeah,
pregnant? Is motherhood
right.
when the baby arrives? It
So
like
yeah, so I have to share that through this work that I do and have been doing for years already. I came across this term matrescence, which was coined by Dana Raphael in the 70s. And that is basically like maternal adolescence. So it's matrescence. And it's basically the process of becoming a mother, right? Like, just like in adolescence, we kind of go through all these shifts and changes and hormones, and our bodies changing, and we're figuring out our identity, and it kind of is a process that takes years into the adult self. That's the same with motherhood, right? It's not like overnight. It's not like, oh, you delivered your baby, or, oh, you
yeah,
had a positive sign on your pregnancy test, so now you're a mother and you know what to do. It's an identity that evolves over time, and we grow into it. And I was speaking to a mom, and we were talking about this concept, and she said to me, well, it doesn't end then. Like, the process of becoming a mother essentially doesn't end.
mhm.
And it's true. I mean, there is no clear start and there is no clear end. And I think that when we reduce the transition to motherhood into, here's your baby, now you're a mom, we're dismissing kind of the vastness of this life-changing experience.
You know, when you were speaking, I'm like, I remember I was doing I did a divorce mediation for a family that had one child, special needs child. And I had a conversation with her about motherhood and about, well, my child was in college, growing, there was going to be marriage, but that was my experience through my motherhood journey. Hers was kind of flatlined. This
Mm,
was always going to be her motherhood journey. And I never thought about it that way, because we think about the developmental changes of children and mothering and all of that, but we don't always think about the other moms where it doesn't change. And you are
mm,
stuck in motherhood from birth on
right.
in the same space, right? Because that child isn't going to change uh,
Mm,
for whatever reason, but she had to learn to grow in that
yeah.
space, just like we learned to grow. But I never thought about the ebb and flow of motherhood in the different stages, like you're alluding to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
big.
Absolutely.
It was
Yeah.
big. So you're M.Other milk, which is your
Hmm.
doing your lactation consulting. You're now certified lactation
Yes,
consultant,
I
correct?
am now a certified lactation counselor.
I
Thank you very
love that.
much.
Uh,
Yes,
and then you
and
have
I
coach potential state, right? At potential state. And are you merging the two experiences? Like, do they both merge in some way?
so the potential state is kind of the umbrella um, organization or kind of entity, and then under that umbrella is Mother Milk.
Okay.
Because they do feed into each other. I think also part of, because at the potential state we work a lot with couples and we work on enriching relationships, and I think that what I've realized is that um, that transition into motherhood really, really influences the relationship.
Amen.
Yeah.
And
And I
then,
think also there, we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about the implications of what that looks like and where that can drive either a wedge or actually be a kind of a driving force to be closer. But it depends, how we communicate it to each other and how we ourselves communicate it to ourselves and how we kind of bridge gaps between, reality and fantasy, or what we had hoped for and what actually happens. And so all these things really influence our relationship, our relationship in our partnership. So to me, there's like this very natural existence where they really feed into
symbiotic
each other.
relationship
Yeah.
between the two. But it's interesting. I think when like you're pregnant and you're having a child, it's like you have, the baby shower and all that, right? But that doesn't really prepare you
Nothing
to be,
prepares you.
to be a mother or to be a dad. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
really prepare you. Do you think there's ways to get better prepared otherwise than stacking up on diapers and beautiful little baby toys? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So two things. Two things I thought of while you were speaking. One is I was just recently listening to. I love Brene Brown, so I was just listening to one of her podcasts, Unlocking Us, and she had Priya Parker, who's phenomenal, and she wrote the book The Art of Gathering, and she talks about you know thinking about why we gather and why we come together. And so when we kind of come together for the baby shower, what is the goal, what is the purpose? And it's great, to stock up on the items and the materialistic things that we need so that you don't have to worry about it once the baby comes. But the real kind of the real idea behind it can be the emotional support, kind of like coming together and having a support network. And I always feel that when women come together, there is huge um, potential for empowerment.
oh,
And when we are able to share from our personal experiences, not in a way that's kind of judgmental or like you should do this because that's how I did it, but just in a very genuine way of this was my experience and I'll share it with you because maybe,
yeah, might
there's
be
something
helpful.
that can be helpful. I think that's hugely powerful. And we need to be careful how we do it, especially, when a woman is kind of entering in this unexpected, unknown territory. But I think sharing from our experiences is always beneficial when we do it kind of with care
Right.
and compassion. And yeah, I think that that's the best way to prepare is to ask, your mom or your aunt or your sister or your friend, um and have, a conversation where vulnerabilities are shared and the kind of the raw emotion, that stuff, not, do this and this, this is the regimented
Right.
way
Yeah.
because
Here's how you bathe the baby.
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right. But a more kind of, this is where I was and this is how I experienced it. And
well,
so
we talked a little earlier, like, and one of the reasons I love speaking with you is because I have my daughter who doesn't have any children yet. She's in her late 20s, but I want to learn how to not put what I want or what I think is the right thing or how it worked for me
yeah.
on her. Like she'll say, "Well, of course, I think I'd probably do an epidural," and I'm like, "No, no, And I have to be really careful because that was what I wanted. That's my body. That's how I know my body works. That doesn't mean that's for her. And we have these rules like if you do it differently than the most organic way, then it's wrong. And I learned from you really, and I watch and I listen to like you're just having your own experience. Just like my daughter will have her own experience. And it really makes you pause. As much as I think I'm a good listener and I'm good this when it's personal, it's
Yeah.
different as opposed to being objective. And I think you do a really good job at allowing people, giving permission for people to just be on their own journey without this inserting of self and thoughts and ideas and telling people what to do. I think
Yeah.
that's a more beautiful legacy piece.
Thank you. Well, firstly, I really appreciate that because I'm happy to hear that whatever I'm doing is working a little bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, it is hard to not share your perspective, because when we, when we're kind of in that mode of like, well, this is how I did it and you should do it this way, we're also getting validation for what we chose,
yeah.
right? um but I think it's about our intentions. So if our intentions are to share and to, you know um you can give information, wisdom, and knowledge through your personal experience. And and we can do that in a way that will allow the person across from us not to feel judged, or not to feel like they're choosing wrongly, or but rather to kind of reflect and think, have a bigger lens, have a bigger
Yeah.
picture, um, than maybe what they currently hold, without feeling pressure, to make a certain choice.
Well, I've
um
learned to ask questions better. Like, do you want my opinion, or do you want, And I don't just.
right.
I used to be very good at inserting my opinion, but over the years I've gotten better at like listening and saying, "Do you want my opinion on that, or were you just sharing?" So like, and I think as I move into kind of being a grandmother at some point, um, I think that's will serve my daughter, it will serve me better to ask more questions than to
Yeah.
give what I think is what we should all be doing. And
Yeah.
that is not an easy space to be in.
No, it's not. It's not. I agree with you. It is very challenging.
Is that part
I
of what
think,
you do though, is helping people? I mean, just kind of asking the questions of
oh,
people?
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I think curiosity is key. Because it puts aside kind of judgment, and it's just genuine. It's genuine. Tell me, I want to know. And it means that you're not assuming that the person across from you's reality. You don't know their internal world, even if you think that you do. You
Yeah.
don't have them completely figured out, because that's just not possible. We're complex and complicated human beings, and we are evolving and changing. And so kind of I've found, Estelle and I talk a lot about play, but I think that curiosity is really, really crucial in our relationships, and even with ourselves. I've found recently that a lot of times that is kind of the antidote to even negative self-talk, or self-criticism, or self-judgment. If I feel these emotions bubbling up, instead of kind of pushing them away and getting angry with myself as to, why are you feeling this, and you shouldn't be feeling this way anymore, and
Mhm.
things like that. It's just, oh, that's so interesting. Oh, I wonder why that's come up now. And if we can kind of follow that trail of curiosity, then we can uncover a lot of very interesting things that can really benefit us and help us move forward, rather than just kind of in this negative space and loop.
Yeah, I'm wondering now that you're speaking about that, about your M.Other milk. I want to know, like, when you're asking like a mom who's like lactating and or she's having a lot of emotions because of hormones, helping women discern between giving permission for that to be hormonal, or giving permission for that to be something that's actually bubbling up because it was dormant and now through being a mom something's come up, right? But
Yeah.
that lens of curiosity, and that's where they can have space with something like what you're doing, is being able to have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I don't ever, I see it as a whole. I never um, um, kind of like blame the hormones. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
that's
Like, I don't think,
yeah.
I just kind of see it as a whole process. And I really try to meet the mom wherever she is. Um, and I do that by just asking a lot of questions. And I also don't believe, my whole coaching approach is that I don't have the answers, right? I don't know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. All I can offer are questions, and all I can offer are different perspectives if you're kind of blind spotting it and are looking in a very particular direction. So I can just, my goal is to try and expand your viewpoint.
Isn't that interesting that I, going to have ownership here, I would go to the hormonal piece and say, oh, you're not normally like this. This is your hormones acting up, instead of that's just where you're at. But
Yeah, because I have to say, like,
that's so helpful.
who knows what normal is, right? That's because you've never been a mom before, or you've never, and even if this is, let's say, number two
Yeah,
or number three, like, you've never been a mom of two before, you've never been a mom of
or
three
that
before.
one
And
before.
right, exactly. And you're different, and your baby's different, right? I think that's also key, is that sometimes we forget that it's a dyad, it's mom and baby.
Yeah.
And especially with breastfeeding, it takes two. And there's a part of us, I think, as a society that's afraid to say that, that, it could be that your baby is having problems, um, you know,
Yes.
lacking, or that, your baby has a tight jaw or a tongue tie, and it's not you at all. But we so quickly assume guilt and blame and take it upon ourselves.
There's
Not to
something
mention the
wrong with
fact,
me if my
yeah,
baby's not
yeah, it's
breastfeeding.
me. I'm not able to, when, it could be that, well, he's premature and he's very weak at the moment and he's just not able to. But, give him 3, 4 weeks, and things will change because babies change so quickly.
Yes.
Um, and so I think we forget that it's a dyad. And yeah, I had something else, but
That's interesting, because then that takes what I did earlier, which put the blame on the hormones there. I got to own what I did. I heard myself. Okay, I
you're
heard
great.
it.
It's all about owning your shit. It's all about
I'm
it's
owning
all
my
about that,
shit right
Colleen.
here. But I see that I went there. Like, oh, that was really helpful to watch myself go there. So I will learn not to do that. But I do think you're so right. We don't speak about a dyad. It's just motherhood is like its own single entity.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't think there's
yeah,
another person there.
absolutely. And the other thing I think that we don't talk enough about is the support network, right? And if you look at kind of society as a system, then it's so much easier to just blame mom rather than say, well, actually, you know, there isn't enough support.
Mhm.
There aren't enough health professionals. A mom needs a lot of resources. There isn't enough maternity leave. All these things that are part of a much wider view rather than just, oh, well, you didn't succeed. And
Right.
I think and that's part of kind of, where my master's in gender studies comes in, and where I'm able to kind of show moms, like, actually, you're part of a bigger system. And the discourse in our on a social level, has kind of left you feeling to blame, but actually you're not. And sometimes that helps because it can distance themselves a little bit from it and realize, well, actually, there are a lot of factors here at play, you know? And so then it can relieve some of the self blame,
And
because
the thing
really,
about motherhood, it's global. I mean, we're all doing the same thing. We're all breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, or struggling or not struggling. Like, it has nothing to do with culture, race, none of it. Doesn't matter what language you speak. It's that motherhood language. It's all the same, no
right,
matter where
right.
you really are.
Well, that's where it's so interesting to see how, and yet, like, in different cultures, there is more or less pressure to, um how you feed your baby, and kind
Oh,
of the
sure.
trends in infant feeding. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there is this amazing common thread between us as mothers. And I think also that's kind of part of what I find so powerful, kind of, in the transition in motherhood. There is, like, this sisterhood when we're able to quiet the shoulds, and when we're able to quiet the judgment, and these unrealistic goals and expectations that are put upon us, and just connect, mother to mother, it's extremely powerful.
How do you see moving the conversation forward on a bigger level? Because I know you would like to, right? I'm sure you would like that, right? How do you
I would
see
so
that?
love
Do you
that.
see that like starting small groups? Do you see the lactation world becoming bigger? I know there's the international lactate. I know that exists, I believe, right? But how do you see it becoming a bigger conversation?
I don't know. I'm working on it, Colleen.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know. I think that I'd like to believe that there has been kind of a shift, or an awakening in general of kind of women,
Right.
you know, feeling more empowered, taking more control over their body, reproductive rights, their health, well-being, um, being more open about their experiences, from menstruation through labor, a kind of a more real depiction of what womanhood is like. But it's slow. It's a process, and we're up against a lot of patriarchal systems still.
So
So
does
it's
that mean an onboarding of men? Do we need more men
Oh,
in that to
absolutely.
say?
Yeah, definitely. But I think that there has been kind of I mean, I feel like there is a ripeness. I feel like there is movement in the right direction. And I think that we are seeing that, in some places more than others. And I might also be in kind of a little bit more of a bubble. But yeah, I'd like to think that we're definitely moving in the right direction, and that there is progress. There's still a lot more to do, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I would like to see it more of a global conversation. I think it's pockets of conversations rather than the bigger picture of conversations. Do you know,
Yeah.
like you hear more about an oil spill than you do about women in lactation. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes. Yeah.
you know,
And
I'm
yet and
I was
yet
watching.
somehow
Go ahead.
infant feeding and breastfeeding is like such a passionate pack topic, People get very passionate about it very quickly. It's really interesting to see. But yeah, I mean,
But it
women's
becomes
health I
very
think is
politicized too.
oh, absolutely. Hugely politicized. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
the hardliners, you breastfeed only, the hardliners leave, that's not how you define me as a mother. Go to work,
Yeah.
don't go to work. It's a pure judgment zone. Instead
Yeah,
of
there is a lot of
together and like
judgment
you do
stuff.
you, I'm gonna do me, it's all good, we're all together. There's the power in that. And so I just want to transition quickly to talk a little bit about your writings that are they typically on your own?
Yes.
It's
Yes,
not
on
it's
my
not on
Facebook.
Potential State, right? It's your own thing
Yes, they're mine on my Facebook account. Yeah,
on your
Galit
Facebook
Romanelli.
account
Yeah.
that's under M.Other Milk, or is it just Galit?
No, it's most of them are Galit Romanelli
Okay,
under, yeah, my account.
because I would want to send people to read them because they're really powerful things you
Thanks.
talk about, especially with your son. And how do you pronounce his name?
Zach,
Zach.
Zach.
Zach. Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
It sounds so much
Well,
nicer when you say. I'm just going to Americanize it, Zach.
yeah, exactly. Well,
But and he's your firstborn, right?
he is my
and,
firstborn.
and that's you go very deep with those writings with him about the sometimes not connecting on a way that you
Yeah.
like, not should, but a way that you would like, and him not connecting with you, so it's not definitely one-sided. But can you speak a little bit to why you put that out there? I mean, they're so moving. I think I read one the other day like 3 times, and I was like tearing because it's so not only are you a beautiful writer,
Thanks.
but I feel like I'm lying in bed next to you, having you talk to me. Like it's so real.
Oh, thanks.
It really
Yeah,
is.
that one. So I know exactly what post you're talking about. I wrote about he and I he's 9.5 going on 15.
Yeah.
So we had a really ugly, nasty day. We were just at each other. I was not my best self by any means. In fact, I think I was my worst possible self. And I just I couldn't get to him. I couldn't get to me. And I got into bed that night, and I was I kind of went deep into myself and was thinking, how do I connect? How do I get us back? Um, because this is not working. It's just not working.
Right.
And all of a sudden I thought about, that closeness that you have with a baby, where you don't have language, right? You don't have words yet. Um, or, certainly your baby doesn't, you do, but that's not how you communicate on this very deep emotional visceral level. And and it just became clear to me that I need to sleep with him. Like, I need to get into bed with him. I need to be close to him physically. He needs to know
And that was, you
that
heard that in yourself, right?
that it was just like, this
Clear.
is what I need to do. And
Yeah.
it was so strong that I felt this clear feeling that if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. And so I I got into bed with him. He sleeps in a bunk bed. His sister's on the bottom bunk. And I spent the night in his bed, and he woke up in the morning, and I have to say that it absolutely changed our relationship. It was this unspoken moment where, you know, he just he or I it was this kind of reconnection as a mom.
Right.
And it really made a change. It
Being
really made a
close,
change.
like physically close like that is almost as close as you're going to get to being back in the womb, so to speak. But
Yeah.
that's, I mean, it was that
Yeah, because
connection.
he's 9.5. I can't cradle him anymore. Hugs are, you know, awkward, and sometimes he can't be bothered, and sometimes I can't be bothered. And a 9-year-old boy, he's like sticky and
Yep.
he's sweaty. But there was something very I
Mhm.
wanted to kind of take us back to those precious, precious moments, when he was a baby. And I didn't know what was
And then
going
you
on.
got
I was
up and
just
what you
tired.
got up that night and went to go to the bathroom.
Yes, I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and he kind of opened one eye and was like, "But come back, okay?" And and I
I
said,
mean, that I
"Absolutely."
still get teary, I think. I do. That's so
Yeah,
moving
yeah,
because
yeah,
you were vulnerable enough to go in and be there with him, and he was vulnerable enough because you softened him to say, "I still need you
yeah,
to come back."
yeah,
Still
absolutely.
gets me every time, I'm telling you. It was powerful on both your parts.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah.
to be able to reconnect. And then I'm going to assume the following day was a better day.
It was. It's been better since, which is amazing because it it really made a difference. I don't think that I realized how big and long lasting the impact of that would be, but it was. And it was like it was like hitting the reset button on our
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. And there's the power of motherhood because a
Yeah,
child wouldn't know how to do that.
yeah,
I mean, wouldn't think to do that or whatever. But as a parent, you take ownership of I need to make something better than it is, and I'm going to do everything I can. I don't know the outcome, but I'm going to do everything I can. But I think people should read your posts, and so
thank you.
I'm going to put in the details below our conversation. I'm going to put your Facebook page if that's okay.
Thanks,
I want people to
absolutely.
read them. They're not every day, but you have often posted very powerful things I think most people really need. And I think to grow the conversation, you have to be able to read people like yourself to know that you're
Thanks.
even out there.
Thanks. Wow, Colleen, I really appreciate that.
But I think
Yeah.
you underestimate, like we all underestimate ourselves and our impact. And I think for me, I mean, I'm over in the States, but I don't care where you are, it's what you're doing because it's part of motherhood.
Yeah, thanks.
And sometimes
Thanks.
you have
Yeah,
to
it means a
press the
lot.
button if they're 9 or 29. Like you know, sometimes it doesn't matter because that you're talking about, it doesn't ever end. That
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I love
Thank
talking to
you.
you. I
Me
could
too.
do it for hours. Lucky we don't live that close. We'd be whining every night. I know that.
Every night.
So thank you
Absolutely.
for coming on. I'm going to bring you back again as I watch what you're continuing
Oh,
to do
I would love
about
that.
other milk, as well as what you and your husband Asael are doing with Potential State. If you're not subscribed to their YouTube channel, please go ahead and subscribe to Potential State, which is a great channel on relationships and marriage and ownership of our how we partner and don't partner well. So go watch what they're doing there. And thanks again for coming on,
Thank you. My
my best
pleasure.
husband, and we will
I
talk
will.
again. Thanks.
Okay. Bye,
Take care.
Colleen. Thanks.